Welcome to Candid Catholic Convos, a program brought to you by the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg. Our mission is to humanize the Church and help you to grow in your faith, love, and understanding. I'm your host, Rachel Trochet, a cradle Catholic who's only human and struggled with faith on more than one occasion. Each week, you'll hear engaging, down-to-earth interviews and actionable strategies you can implement into your life with ease to help you grow closer to God. If you're ready to open your heart and step fully into the person God created you to be, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome to episode 175 of Candid Catholic Convos. I have done a lot of work on myself over the last several years, spiritually, physically, mentally, a lot of which I've talked about on this program. But something you may not know is that I also manage our diocesan social media presence. So social media, in essence, is part of my job. At least that's what I tell myself at night when I'm doom scrolling. As much as I've worked to strengthen my body, my mind, and my spirit, I'm still human and subject to occasionally feeling bad about myself. I used to compete in martial arts. I used to fit a size 6 pants. I was never able to run a mile without stopping, but I also never used to question whether or not I looked good when I woke up in the morning. And over the last 25 years, my body has changed so much I could hardly recognize it. The amount of work I've done to remind myself that this body has carried me through 3 pregnancies, health problems, a deployment, and more loss than I care to share sometimes makes me feel like Sisyphus trying to push that boulder up a hill. Every time I open social media, I'm bombarded with images of people in better shape, with better clothes and beautiful homes, many of them selling quick fixes that will make you look just like them for the price of your daily cup of coffee. It's impossible not to see someone encouraging you to get your perfect beach body before summer is over. But last year, I stumbled across this poem, on social media, of course, by Josie Balka from her book, I Hope You Remember. I'm going to read you the excerpt that caught my attention and made me feel so seen. I can't remember anyone I've ever seen at a public pool with such a memorable body, good or bad, that I ever think about it again. I've never been enamored with an attractive person at a bar or an airport enough for them to grab my attention more than just the once. I've never thought, I wonder if that woman's jeans are a bigger size this year than they were last year. I've never sat at a table at a party and repeated a story about the way someone's arms looked in their tank top, or which notch someone had on their belt when I saw them today. When I talk about my friends, sometimes I will bother to note that they are beautiful, yes, but I will list the things that make them that way. That they are funny and thoughtful, kind and caring, strange and lovely. Not that their frame is small or their clothes are expensive, because it's one thing to want to be looked at, and another to want to be known. I cannot wait for you to meet her. She's in such good shape. Doesn't roll off the tongue like, I cannot wait for you to meet her. She's so nice and funny. You're going to love her. I wanted to share that with you in the hopes that it reminds you, just like it did me, that you are so much more than your external features. God saw the whole world, and he saw that it was good. But he also saw that it was not complete without you in it. Now that sounds great on paper, but in the throes of our human brokenness and negativity, how can we treat this gift God has given us with respect and remember that we're made in his image? How can we strengthen our faith as we strengthen our bodies? Today we're revisiting an episode with Erin McCole Cupp, author and certified trauma recovery counselor, about aligning our faith with our fitness goals and glorifying God with our bodies, no matter what they look like. Erin, thank you so much for joining me on Candid Catholic Convos today. I am super excited to just kind of dive into this. So if you don't mind, would you mind telling me a little bit about yourself?
Not at all. Of course, this is the question that I am the least excited to talk about, but
it's always the hardest one to answer too, right?
I mean, it's like, what version do you want? The Cliff Notes or the, encyclopedia version? Anyway, my name's Erin McCole Cupp. I am a lay Dominican, and I came back to the church when I was about 18. No, that's when I came back to Christ. And then by the time I was 19, I was Catholic again. In that time, I have struggled with coming to terms with childhood trauma, which is hugely instrumental, for lack of a better term, in my developing an eating disorder. And as a result of that eating disorder, I gained 100 pounds. Oh, actually, a little over 100 pounds, and was working so hard at getting closer to God in my faith and, praying and reading all these theology books. I had a theology book in one hand and a bag of chips in the other a lot of the times. So that was just God laying the rails for him to heal me, not just in my mind, but in my heart and in my body. And as a result of all of that, I came to recovery for my eating disorder. And over the course of a couple years, lost the 100 pounds and I've kept it off ever since. And I'm living in food freedom. And it's the kind of thing that if I don't share that with other people, don't make that available to other people, when I get to my soul review, it's not going to go well. Mm. So I kind of feel duty bound to make this as accessible as possible to people, this knowledge of not just head knowledge, but the heart knowledge as well, of how much God wants to heal us, body, heart, mind, and soul, and all the things he has in store for us.
I love that, because I feel like a lot of that is so gate kept anymore. So I love that you're being open and forthright and just sharing it with everyone, because you're right. I think there's that disconnect between, we think that it's just the body, so we focus on just the body and not the other things that go with it. I feel like in the social media health and fitness space, there's a real push and pull, especially with those who subscribe to body positivity or body confidence, which is like feeling comfortable in your own skin no matter what your size is, and those who believe that that type of thinking is unhealthy and it's contributing to the rise of obesity. What does the church say about our relationship with our bodies?
Well, the Catechism of the Catholic Church points out that, and Aquinas points it out, and the Theology of the Body points it out, and it has proven out in my experience and the experience of so many of my clients, that our culture tries to tell us that we are these like souls poured into these body-shaped jars, when really we are souls with bodies ensouled and embodied souls. And like, we can't take the two apart. It's sort of all the Thomases out there are gonna send me emails because I'm gonna get this wrong, but my Dominican name is St. Thomas Aquinas, so come on, brother, help me out here. There's in the sacraments, we talk about it pretty regularly. There's form and matter. There's the matter, the stuff that is used, and the form, the stuff you do with what is used. And those things work together to create, for God to create a sacrament and for us to participate in it. And in that way, if we look at our bodies as sacramentals, I mean, St. John Paul II says that the body and only the body is capable of making visible the invisible, the spiritual and the divine. Like, our bodies are here to show things that we can't see. Like, our bodies are like the ink for the word of God. And so they matter. And yet, the reason I called my first program Filled with Good, is because, Mary in the Magnificat says, the hungry he has filled with good things. And we're all hungry for something. And whatever your shape or size is today, you are already filled with good, because you're already made in the image and likeness of God. And God loves you so much that he wants you to be full of life, even here, even now in this fallen world. Now, going back to how hard it is, our God is not uncompassionate. He knows how hard it is. And I'm very confident, faithful, that he knew how hard it was for me all of those years to try and try and try and fail and fail and fail, and think that I had failed him and that I did not love him enough. And now that, I've gone through the process of really getting that love of God from my intellect down into my heart, I'm able to live it in my body much more. And also, even though I've lost 100 pounds, I've, totally, revamped how I do life. And yet you could look at me and say, well, she's not bikini material or whatever. If the point of weight loss or health seeking is so that we can satisfy human opinion, we're always going to fail, because human opinion is always changing. Whereas if our goal, I think, is to live God's life most wholly and fully, and image God's love for humanity most wholly in all we think, feel, and do, then that's just going to show, whether it's, showing in how one walks away from, say, an addiction like porn, or how one walks away from an addiction like popcorn. It's all the same mechanism in the brain. And the end result is hopefully not about how I'm going to look in a bathing suit. It's how I'm going to live in heaven. And so for those people who, are approaching the idea of, shaking a compulsion towards food only because you want to, look good for somebody's wedding, I think you're kind of missing the point. Because even if you, quote unquote, look good for somebody's wedding, there's always going to be some fallen person out there who's going to find something to complain about.
Right.
So, if you're looking for, likes on Instagram, you're going to be disappointed.
I kind of want to piggyback off of that for a minute, because I feel like there's a really fine line between honoring and taking care of our bodies and obsession and preoccupation. And like we said, for pure vanity, where we strive so hard for perfection. I mean, we see it everywhere. It's on magazines, it's shows aimed at contestants who can lose the most weight, and putting all of our emphasis in our physical bodies, like you said, rather than our spiritual bodies. But if they're connected, how do we make sure that they're both healthy? And again, walk that fine line between, because I feel like you could eventually become obsessed with, trying to create the perfect body, whether that's in spiritual or physical form.
Well, first of all, the obsession with anything generally comes from perfectionism. I want to feel perfect. I want people to think I'm perfect. So I'm going to do and do and do until somebody tells me I'm perfect. And that's like, God is never going to tell you you're perfect here, but he's going to tell you you're wonderfully made. But anyway, going back to that perfectionism thing and the obsession that often comes from it, I often tell my clients that if we were going to judge, complain, and criticize ourselves into perfection, it would have worked by now. What happens in the brain-body combo is that when we find something to complain about in ourselves, when we use that self-talk in our brain to, say, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, what we do is we cause our brains pain. We cause our whole selves pain. And what was I talking about before with the path from pain to comfort? Where's that going to go? That's just going to lead to more food. This is why in my opinion, so many people, that's why of that 80% of people who lose weight are going to gain it back again, because that until that self-talk is changed, until that obsession is changed, that pain is going to continue to cause more pain, which makes it a lot harder to change that path. So the danger with obsession, I think, has its roots in perfectionism. And until we trust God to make sure enough that we can believe we will be okay, not because of anything we've done, but because of his mercy, we're going to, just keep missing that boat, keep using the wrong path or the least helpful path. But there's another way, and there's hope, and it's pretty cool, because that's why I talk about, my work as not about necessarily weight loss. I mean, honestly, I use the word weight loss because of SEO and search engines, because that's what people are looking for. People are looking for Catholic weight loss. And that's not quite what this is. If that happens incidentally, yay. But really, it's about the heart change and the food freedom. Like, to be able to, still to this day so far, I am always surprised when I I started eating a chocolate, didn't feel like finishing it, put it away, and then 3 weeks later, I find it still uneaten. Number one, how did my dogs not find it? But number two, how did I forget? How did I forget chocolate? How? Never in my life had I forgotten chocolate before. Now it happens kind of on the regular, which I guess is also a testament to my scatterbrainedness, but it's also a testament to how my my priorities have changed, that I'm more focused on God than the food, more focused on relationship than the food. And so like, I think that's the shift away from that lack of balance, that obsession with perfectionism.
I feel like there's a relationship with food that also needs healing, is that if you're turning to food for comfort rather than connection, like when you're out with friends or whatever. And that takes a lot of work internally as well. I was working with a dietitian recently because I was so focused on like my caloric intake, and like if I went over this number that this app told me that like I had failed and like my whole day was shot, and I undid all the good work that I had done. And she looks at me and she's like, it's an app. Like, it's a computer with a randomly generated number. Why are you letting it control your life? Let's focus on like getting you feeling better and like eating with balance. And I was like, it just blew my mind that I had completely forgotten about balance and focusing more on the relationship with my husband and my kids, sitting at the table and making sure everyone's eating with balance versus like, if I don't eat 656 calories at this meal and my macros are this, that, and the third. I want to go back to something that you said though about how we talk to ourselves and constantly using negative language when we talk to her. Like, you wouldn't go up to your friend and say something horrible that you would to yourself in the mirror.
Well, I know people who would, but
Oh.
most people
Most
don't.
people.
Most people don't.
So what about those of us who really struggle with that, like with a negative body image, or like yourself, you said you mentioned you had an eating disorder. How do we balance and marry our faith to our wellness?
I think it again comes down to being able to trust God fully with all outcomes. Because, well, let's put it this way. One of the things I held on to before I got into recovery was about my body images. And that's this fear that if I lost weight, it would draw attention to a part of my body that won't change when I lose weight, that doesn't change when I lose weight, and is already, unfortunately, very attention getting. And that was scary, and I'd rather just be a lump than be, an object for people to look at. But the transformation that had to happen for me was that I would trust God that I would be okay no matter how people look at me, including myself. And so it had to get to a point where I trust God to protect me and keep me whole and restore me when people are staring at my body parts and not my eyes. And until I could get to a place where I trust God, I trust that God thinks I'm beautiful no matter how many people tell me I'm not or act like I'm not. And until I could get to that place, I was always pursuing somebody else's opinion when God's opinion will never change. That's why, like, in my before and after picture, I know some people aren't fond of those, but I showed my before and after picture because my before picture, I looked really good. I looked lovely in that dress. That was such a cute purse. It was like, it was a lovely picture. My makeup was on point that day. It was, it was the whole thing. And and then in my, quote unquote after picture, 100 pounds are gone. And I still looked like I was lovely in both pictures. And anybody who was looking for reasons to complain about my body, including myself, wasn't looking in the right direction. There's another direction to look. And I think that would help, what you were saying about eating disorders. My eating disorder was not, people a lot of times when they think eating disorders, they think anorexia, bulimia, I don't want to eat. Yeah. They think bulimia, and they assume bulimia only means I binge and then I purge and then I throw up or maybe use laxatives. I discovered, I keep saying that I have binge eating disorder. I discovered that I fit the diagnostic criteria for bulimia. Even when I was 100 pounds overweight, 100, whatever pounds overweight, because I was on a binge restrict cycle. I would restrict. That would cause me pain. What do I do when I'm in pain? I go down that well-worn path back to the food to make myself feel better. I'm in pain because my stomach hurts and I'm ashamed of myself. So I go back to restrict and back and forth and back and forth. And you know, it's different than, you know, anorexia or bulimia or a bunch of other, you know, eating disorders. If you look up in the DSM, but at its core, just like any addiction, compulsion, or unhealthy attachment, it's about not trusting God to get us to the other side of constructive discomfort. If we're going to let go of any of that, we need to learn how to trust that God's going to get us to the other side and we will be okay. And that's, you know, whether it's somebody's opinion about your body, whether it's your own opinion about what you should be eating when, you know, science and your body is telling you otherwise, you know, whether it's too much or too little, it's all, I think it's the same mechanism. It just expresses itself differently in different people.
I love what you said about chasing other people's opinions. When I think my youngest was like maybe 2, and I hadn't lost the weight, and I was like really beating myself up, but my kids really wanted to go to the pool. And I had been reading Rachel Hollis's book at the time. I think it was Girl Wash Your Face. And she said, someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. And that like changed my whole summer, because I was like, I'm going to rock that swimsuit. I don't care. My kids don't care. My kids just want me to go swimming with them in the baby pool and just sit there and like splash them. Like, they don't care. My kids aren't going to say anything. And anybody else who has something to say, like, should be more concerned about themselves and their relationship with God or whoever, you know. It was, that to me was really life-changing. It's like you said, I think the only person whose opinion truly matters is God's. Yeah. And how he feels about you. And if you're created in his image and likeness and you're fearfully and wonderfully made, then obviously he cares about you and how you feel. I want to kind of build off of that, talk about obsession. I feel like taking care of our health and our physical fitness could potentially be in conflict with our spiritual goals if we're focusing solely on that, like how many minutes I'm on the treadmill, or, you know, the macros that I'm eating, or again, like going back to the calorie counting app. Like, well,
I think I had that app as well at one point in my life.
Yes, I think I had it for years. So this is the first like 3 months that I haven't been using it, and I'm like, this load has just been lifted off of me. So talk to me a little bit about, is there a conflict between our health and physical fitness versus our spiritual fitness, or are they linked?
I mean, I kind of said, like, why would there be a conflict? It goes back to that obsession, whether we are, you know, pursuing God's love and our love for God, or whether we're pursuing human opinion, is going to dictate. I recently heard, where your focus goes, your energy flows. That sounds really new agey, but I mean, like, if you take it out, you know, take it out of that context and think in terms of, you know, what we call spirit, what we call, you know, like our physical energy, not like, you know, some sort of new age thing, just like the life force that we put into stuff. If we're directing it towards, again, human opinion, then that's what we're going to be obsessed with. And we will express it in, you know, how many, you know, marathon stickers I can put on the back of my car, or magnets or whatever. But then there's also the danger of scrupulosity, where, you know, I've had, you know, people sort of hint to me, never really say out loud, that, well, I don't have time for exercise because, you know, I have to pray every single liturgy of the hours, and I have to go to 3 daily masses. I'm exaggerating here, but, you know, we're humans. This is a fallen world. We can take anything and run the wrong way with it, whether it's exercise, whether it's nutrition, whether it's the liturgy of the hours. Like, somebody will find a way to make it an obsession. And that's, again, because we are trying to use our own power to make ourselves feel safe. And it's a fallen world. That's not going to happen. It's like trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. So we've got to, like, you know, really let go and trust that, again, I sound like a broken record, but trust that God's going to get us through that discomfort to our resurrection, whether that's discomfort is, you know, spending time with your kids instead of spending time training for a marathon. Not that marathons are bad, but, you know, there are some people who choose marathon over family, who choose marathon over, you know, relationship over charity. It's really easy. We'll take anything and turn it into an obsession. The challenge is to, you know, get out of that automatic space of whatever our habits and compulsions are, and into a space of freedom where we are deliberately choosing, because we know whatever choice we make, because we're staying connected to our divine purpose, we're going to mess it up, and God's okay with that. Like it's not like he's surprised that we're sinners. Like, this wasn't like, oh, what? My creation? No. I mean, he knew this was coming. He saw it coming. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does.
It does. It does. And it kind of steers me back to something that you said earlier about like our negative self-talk and trying to loathe ourselves into holiness, for lack of a better term. Because I can't tell you how many times I've said this, like whether I'm dealing with health issues or weight issues, that like, oh, my problem is that my body hates me. No matter how hard I try to be healthy, it just never does what I want it to do. And I end up feeling broken. And at this time of year, it's prime time for companies that prey upon vulnerabilities, and they promise quick fixes, miracle pills, extreme health and wellness strategies. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, the theology of the body focuses on how we were designed by God to function. So we could apply those principles to how we meet our health and fitness goals in the new year without loathing the bodies that God gave us. How do we do that? Like, what's if somebody were going to start tomorrow and say, I want to utilize the principles and theology of the body to get back to loving myself and really only caring about what God thinks of me, what would your first piece of advice be?
I think the first thing to point out is whenever we say, I hate my body, and first let me validate, I have been there. Like, oh, my body hates me. I'm in this pain because my body hates me. I can't lose weight because
something's
my body
wrong
hates
with
me.
me.
Something's wrong with me.
We've unfortunately run out of time, but if you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, you can listen to us anytime on Spotify under Candid Catholic Convos, or you can download this episode from our website at hbgdiocese.org. Thank you so much for listening. Our goal at the Diocese of Harrisburg is to walk with you on your faith journey. So if this episode resonated with you in any way, the easiest way to show your appreciation is by sharing this program with your network or by leaving a review on your listening platform. You can also support us financially by making a donation online at hbgdiocese.org/DAC and clicking the Make a Donation button. Thanks again, and we'll see you at church on Sunday.